Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this for a second. What have you been saying to yourself when no one's around? When the lights are off? When the phone is silent? When it's just you and that voice inside your head? Because I know that voice, I've lived with it too. The one that whispers, "You're not good enough." The one that throws your past mistakes back in your face. The one that makes you shrink when you should rise. That voice is not the truth. That voice is a lie you've rehearsed. I remember growing up in a poor part of Miami, labeled as educable, mentally retarded. Teachers gave up on me. Society gave up on me. But the most dangerous thing, I started to give up on myself. I wore their opinions like skin. And maybe you've been doing the same. You've been talking yourself out of greatness. But today we stop that. Today we interrupt the pattern. Today we stop degrading ourselves and we start standing in our power. So let's walk through this together, heart to heart. You were not born broken somewhere. Somehow somebody convinced you that you were less, that you were flawed, that something about you just didn't measure up. And it might not have been said outright. Maybe it came in a glance, a rejection, a silence that felt like a scream. Maybe it was the way your teacher overlooked you, or the way your father never said, "I'm proud of you." Maybe it was the way society talks about people like you, your body, your background, your story, your dreams. Bit by bit, you started to internalize a message that was never yours to begin with. I am not enough. But I came to tell you, and I need you to hear me deep down in your bones. You were not born broken. No baby is born doubting themselves. No child comes into this world thinking they don't belong. Look at a baby. They cry when they need something. They reach without hesitation. They smile like they own the room. That's who we are at the core, unapologetically worthy. Before the world taught us to shrink, we were fearless. Before we learned how to compare, we were content. Before we were wounded, we were whole. But life can be loud. And sometimes the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones who did the most damage. Maybe someone made fun of the way you talked. Maybe you were told to sit down when you had something important to say. Maybe you failed once and you decided to label yourself a failure. You see, the problem is that when the world doesn't validate you, when it doesn't reflect your light back to you, you start to question whether the light was ever there. But I'm here to tell you, your light has never gone out. It may be dimmed. It may be buried under shame, guilt, and doubt. But it's still there. You are not the names they called you. You are not the rejections you faced. You are not the moments you messed up. You are not the abuse you endured. You are not the love you never received. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are a masterpiece in motion. And a masterpiece doesn't always look finished in the middle of the process. The brushstrokes might look messy. The colors might not make sense yet. But that doesn't mean the painting is ruined. It just means God is still working. You see, degrading yourself is like throwing paint over the canvas of your soul just because someone else said it wasn't beautiful. It's like trying to erase your uniqueness so you can fit into someone else's mold. But you weren't made to fit in. You were made to stand out. You were made to reflect the divine in a way no one else on this earth can. You were made with intention. But if we're honest, so many of us are walking around wearing masks, smiling when we're dying inside, playing roles we were never meant to play, living lives we don't love, all because somewhere along the way, we believed the lie that we weren't enough as we are, that we had to earn love, that we had to chase validation, that we had to be more, do more, achieve more just to be worthy of breathing. But what if I told you that you didn't need to change a thing to be worthy? What if I told you that your value doesn't come from your performance, your productivity, or your popularity, but from your very existence? You were born worthy. Before you had a job, before you had a degree, before you had followers, before you were told how to live, before the world taught you to be ashamed of yourself, you were enough, and you still are. You don't have to keep degrading yourself just to make others feel comfortable. You don't have to play small just to avoid being seen. You don't have to keep apologizing for the space you take up, for the dreams you have, for the life you want to live. It's time to strip off the shame. The shame that says you're too much. The shame that says you'll never be enough. The shame that says you're broken. Because you're not. You are whole. And your journey, with all its pain and imperfection, is still sacred. You don't have to fix yourself to be worthy of love. You don't have to erase yourself to be accepted. You don't have to degrade yourself to be safe. You were not born broken. You were born brilliant. Stop talking yourself out of greatness. You ever catch yourself standing at the edge of something powerful, an idea, a dream, an opportunity, and just when you start to reach for it, a voice inside you whispers, "You're not ready. You don't have what it takes. Who do you think you are?" That voice isn't just doubt. It's fear wearing the mask of reason. It's hesitation dressed up like logic. And it's been robbing people of their greatness for far too long. You weren't born with that voice. You learned it. Piece by piece, failure by failure, rejection after rejection. You internalized every no, every door that closed, every person who didn't see you. And you turned it into a voice that now lives in your own head, telling you what you can't do, instead of reminding you of what you can. I know that voice well. I used to live with it like a roommate. I let it control my decisions. I let it shrink my vision. I let it sabotage my steps before I even took them. Every time I had a chance to rise, I'd talk myself back down. I'd say, I'm not good enough to be a speaker, not educated enough, not polished enough. And I believed that. I believed that for a long time. But here's what I finally realized: that voice wasn't telling the truth. It was repeating a lie that had been handed to me and passed down from other people who were afraid. And their fear had become my language. Their limitations had become my mindset. I wasn't doubting my abilities. I was just carrying old pain that had never been healed. And then one day, someone looked me in the eyes and said, Les, someone is out there right now who's waiting on your voice just to make it through the day. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. That hit me so hard I couldn't breathe, because I had spent years silencing myself, not realizing that while I was hiding, someone else was hurting. That while I was talking myself out of my purpose, someone else was looking for a reason to keep going, and I might have been the one to give it to them. And maybe, just maybe, someone's waiting on you too. See, we don't just talk ourselves out of dreams, we talk ourselves out of impact, out of service, out of legacy. You're not just saying no to your goal when you shrink yourself. You're saying no to every person who needs to see you win so they can believe they can too. I want you to think about the last time you felt that pull towards something greater. That moment when something inside of you said, what if I could do it? But then, just as quickly, the voice came back, nah, not you. People like you don't get to do that. That's for someone else. And you retreated again. And the thing is, you might have thought that was humility. You might have thought that was wisdom or practicality or just being realistic. But let me tell you what it really was: a habit. A survival habit that your brain developed to protect you from disappointment. It told you not to try so you wouldn't feel the sting of failing. It told you to stay small so you wouldn't be exposed. It told you to lower your standards so you wouldn't be heartbroken. But that voice, it's a liar. It doesn't know what's waiting on the other side of your courage. It doesn't understand that greatness doesn't live in certainty. It lives in risk, in vulnerability, in stretching beyond what you've known. You weren't given that dream by accident. It was planted inside you for a reason. It's not foolish. It's not too big. It's not too late. That dream is proof that something greater is trying to be born through you. But it can't happen if every time it tries to rise, you shut it down with the sound of your own voice. You have no idea how powerful you are when you stop being your own worst enemy. You have no clue the mountains you could move if you stopped giving the microphone to the voice of fear and started amplifying the voice of faith. You can talk yourself out of greatness, or you can talk yourself into it. It's a choice. Every single day, you can say, I don't have enough. Or you can say, I'm learning. You can say, I'm not ready. Or you can say, I'm growing into it. You can say, I'm afraid, and still take the next step anyway. You've got something inside of you that this world needs. A story, a gift, a vision, a perspective that only you can offer. And no matter how loud that inner critic gets, there's a louder truth waiting to rise. A truth that says you're enough, that you're capable, that you're chosen, that your future isn't behind you. It's ahead, waiting for you to stop talking yourself out of it and finally step into it. Greatness is not reserved for the perfect. It's reserved for the willing. So stop silencing your strength. Stop dimming your light. Stop apologizing for your greatness. And for once, instead of asking, who am I to do this? Ask, who am I not to? You were made for this. Your value is not determined by external validation. There's a trap that too many of us fall into, a subtle, silent prison that wraps itself around our identity. It starts when we're young, when we first begin to understand the difference between applause and silence, approval and rejection. Slowly, without realizing it, we start looking outward for our worth. We begin to crave the likes, the compliments, the trophies, the promotions, the attention, the approval. And each time we receive it, it feels like proof that we matter. But each time we don't, it feels like maybe we don't. Let me say something to you from the deepest part of my soul. Your value is not a vote. It is not a trend. It is not a scorecard. It is not something others can give or take away. Your value is inherent. It is divine. It is yours. You see, I used to chase applause like oxygen. I used to walk into rooms hoping people would see me, notice me, validate me. I tied my self-worth to performance, to perception. I thought, if enough people like me, then maybe I'll like me too. But no matter how loud the applause got, the silence inside me was deafening. Because the truth is, when you don't see your own value, no amount of external validation will ever be enough. Some of you know what that feels like. You've lived your whole life trying to be good enough for them. You shrink your dreams because someone else can't see them. You filter your truth because you're afraid of judgment. You bend over backward for people who still don't see your heart, and it hurts. It wears you down. It makes you question whether you're enough. But let me tell you, their inability to recognize your value doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means they're not qualified to define it. There's a story I heard once about a man holding a 100 bill. He held it up and asked a crowd, who wants this? Every hand went up. Then he crumpled it, threw it on the floor, stomped on it. He picked it up, dirty and wrinkled, and asked again, now who still wants it? Every hand stayed up. Why? Because it didn't matter what had been done to it. It never lost its value. And you are no different. You've been stepped on, overlooked, misunderstood. You've been told you're too much or not enough. Maybe someone walked away from you, rejected you, told you that you were hard to love. But none of that defines you. None of that decides who you are. You're still worthy, still valuable, still a masterpiece in progress. But here's the thing. You've got to stop waiting for others to confirm what God already decided. You've got to stop measuring your worth by people who are lost in their own pain. Sometimes the ones who hurt you the most are the ones who never learned how to love themselves either. And hurt people. Hurt people. You've got to break free from this illusion that the world gets to decide who you are. You're not a reflection of other people's opinions. You're a reflection of your Creator. You're not here to be liked by everybody. You're here to live your purpose. And listen to me closely. When you begin to own your worth from within, you become dangerous to every system that profits off your insecurity. You stop needing permission. You stop living for applause. You start living from truth. And that changes everything. There's power in knowing who you are. Even when the world forgets. There's freedom in validating yourself. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's alignment. It's standing in front of the mirror and saying, I am enough, as I am, before the promotion, before the degree, before the applause, before the relationship, before the breakthrough. I am enough now. Because when you stop chasing external validation, you start finding internal peace. You stop living in fear of rejection and start living in the fullness of your truth. You stop proving and start being. You are not a number, not a role, not a follower count, not a paycheck. You are not the things that happened to you. You are not the names they called you. You are not your failures. You are not your past. You are worthy, period, with no conditions attached. The applause will come and go. The compliments will fade. The validation will rise and fall like the tide. But your value, that stays. That never wavers. That was there before the world saw you, and it'll be there long after the world forgets. So the next time you find yourself waiting on someone else to tell you you're enough, stop. Take a deep breath. Put your hand over your heart and remind yourself of a truth no one can take away. I was valuable the day I was born. I'll be valuable the day I leave this earth. I don't need the world to agree for that to be true. And when you know that, truly know that, you walk different. You speak different. You dream louder. And you stop degrading yourself just to be accepted by people who don't even see the gold you carry inside. Your past is a place of reference, not residence. There's something about the past. It has a voice. A whisper that grows louder when you're about to rise. When you begin to heal, that voice reminds you of who you used to be. When you get ready to chase your dream, it shows you all the times you failed. And when you start to love yourself, it throws your old shame back in your face. But hear me today, your past may have shaped you, but it does not own you. I know what it feels like to be haunted by what was. I know what it's like to look in the mirror and see the reflection of old pain instead of new possibility. See, I grew up believing I was unwanted. I was born on an abandoned floor of a building in an impoverished area of Miami. My birth mother gave me away. And for a long time, I believed that meant something was wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough to keep, to love, to matter. That belief became a chain around my mind. It crept into my confidence, into my decisions, into my self-talk. Why even try? I'd ask myself, you're already broken. I lived there, in that space of pain. I built a mental house out of my past and sat inside watching life pass me by. But one day, something in me rose up, something divine, something that said, Les, you don't belong here. You don't have to keep living where you were hurt. And that changed everything. See, the past is like a rearview mirror. It's there so you can glance at it. Learn from, avoid the same mistakes. But if you try to drive your life by staring at it, you're going to crash. Because life, real life, is lived forward. Your past is a place of reference, not residence. Some of you are still living in something that happened years ago. Maybe you failed once, and now you believe you'll always fail. Maybe someone walked away, and now you believe you're unlovable. Maybe you hurt someone, and now you carry guilt so heavy it keeps you from standing tall. But listen to me. Your past is not a life sentence. It's a classroom. It's where you learned, where you discovered your resilience, where you met your limits and then pushed past them. It's where you found out what you could survive. That pain, it wasn't meant to imprison you. It was meant to prepare you. You're not supposed to drag your past behind you like a weight. You're supposed to build with it. Use it. Learn from it. Let it shape you into someone wiser, stronger, softer, and bolder. And yes, the past hurts. I won't pretend it doesn't. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means transforming. You take that wound and instead of letting it become your weakness, you let it become your wisdom. I've spoken to people who were abused, abandoned, betrayed. People who've made devastating mistakes. And each of them believed at one point that they were too broken to build a future. But the moment they realized that their past didn't define them, that they could use their story instead of being used by it, that's when they took their life back. You can do the same. You are not your failures. You are not your trauma. You are not your worst day or your darkest secret. You are not what they did to you. You are what you do next, what you choose to believe, what you decide to become. Don't pitch a tent in your pain. Don't build a house in your history. Get what you came for, the lesson, and move forward. You've got a future that's too powerful to let your past keep driving. You've got purpose waiting for you to say yes to the next chapter. And yes, it might feel hard to leave the comfort of what you've known, even if it's been painful. But healing is not about comfort. It's about courage. So forgive yourself, not because what happened was okay, but because you deserve peace. Let go of the need to relive what you can't rewrite. Close the chapter, not because it wasn't important, but because it's not your whole story. You've still got pages to write. You've still got dreams to build. You've still got love to give and receive. You've still got purpose pumping through your veins. Let the past inform you, not imprison you, because you're not stuck. You're not broken. You're not finished. You are becoming. And that is more powerful than anything that ever tried to break you. What you believe about yourself shapes your future. There was a time when someone told me, Les, you've got greatness in you. And do you know what I did? I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't even begin to imagine that something like greatness could live in a man who had been labeled a jukable, mentally retarded, who was adopted, who was poor, who had failed in school. But that person saw something in me that I couldn't yet see in myself. And they kept saying it again and again until one day I started to believe it just a little bit. That little bit that changed my whole life. What you believe about yourself is the foundation of your future. Not your background, not your bank account, not your education, not your past mistakes. What you believe. Because your beliefs shape your behavior. Your behavior shapes your habits. And your habits shape your future. You can't build a mansion on a cracked foundation of self-doubt. You can't climb to new heights if you believe you don't deserve to be there. You can't open doors you don't believe you have the right to knock on. Belief isn't just wishful thinking. It's the soil in which your future grows. And if you keep planting seeds of, I can't, I'm not enough, I'll never make it, then all you're going to grow is fear, hesitation, and regret. I remember standing on a stage one day, trembling, doubting, thinking, who am I to speak into people's lives? That voice inside me whispered, sit down, Les. You're not qualified. You're not good enough. But then another voice rose up, just a little louder, and said, but what if I am? What if I do have something to give? That belief, it didn't erase the fear, but it gave me the courage to move through it. Because when you start to believe in yourself, you don't wait for someone else to validate you. You validate yourself. And let me tell you something, other people can see your potential, but if you don't believe it, you won't walk in it. You'll shrink. You'll play small. You'll wait for the right time, the perfect conditions, the green light. But life doesn't hand out green lights. It gives you a yellow one and says, decide. Belief is a decision, a choice, a commitment to see yourself not as you've been, but as you can be. If you believe you're a failure, you'll act like one. You'll pass up opportunities. You'll sabotage relationships. You'll resist growth because your mind will filter everything through that broken identity. But if you believe you are powerful, worthy, capable, chosen, then you will begin to act like it. You'll speak up. You'll step forward. You'll try again. You'll fail and learn, not fail and quit. You'll begin to expect more from yourself. And let me tell you, when your belief changes, your energy changes. Your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your decisions change. I've met so many people who have all the talent in the world, all the heart, all the experience. But they can't break through because they don't believe they deserve to. Somewhere deep down, they're still carrying the lie that they're not good enough, that they're too old, too damaged, too late. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've let other people's opinions become your truth. Maybe you've internalized the rejection, the failure, the shame, and it's shaped your belief system. But today, I want you to hear this. You have greatness in you. Not potential to be great someday, but greatness right now. Not perfection, but purpose. Not a finished product, but a divine process. I don't care what your bank account says. I don't care if you dropped out of school. I don't care if you've made every mistake in the book. That doesn't change your value. That doesn't cancel your calling. If you change your belief, you can change your life. You've got to start affirming yourself. Speaking life into your mind, looking in the mirror and saying, I am worthy. I am powerful. I am becoming everything I was created to be. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's not ego. That's truth. Because belief is what gets you up when life knocks you down. It's what keeps you going when everything in you wants to quit. It's what allows you to walk into a room full of people who don't believe in you and still take your seat at the table. You've got to choose to believe something different about yourself. Not just once, not just when things are going well, but every single day. Because the enemy of your destiny is not your situation, it's your self-image. So I'll say it again, and I want you to let it sink in. You have greatness in you. And once you believe that, your life will never be the same. You don't have to have it all together to be powerful. I need you to hear me on this one, because somebody's life is on hold right now. Somebody's dream is on pause because they believe they're not ready. They're waiting to become someone they think they have to be in order to matter, in order to speak, in order to lead, in order to love. And I'm telling you from the depths of my soul, you don't have to have it all together to be powerful. You don't need every piece of your life figured out to show up and make a difference. You don't need to be perfect to be effective. The world doesn't need your perfection. The world needs your presence, your honesty, your effort, your courage to show up as you are, not as who you think people want you to be. Let me tell you something about me. There were moments before I stepped onto some of the biggest stages in the world when I sat in the back room, sweating, nervous, afraid. I've walked out to cheers and applause with a trembling heart and a voice that cracked. I've been praised and I've been criticized. I've stumbled over my words. I've lost my train of thought. I've forgotten names. And still, I showed up because someone once told me, Les, it's not about being polished. It's about being present. And if you're waiting until you feel confident before you act, you're going to be waiting your whole life. Confidence doesn't come before the action. It comes from the action. You build it by doing the thing while your knees are shaking, while your voice trembles, while your palms sweat. You become confident by choosing courage first. There is power in vulnerability, power in authenticity, power in simply saying, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm here. I'm trying. I care. That moves people. That inspires people. Because when you're real, you give other people permission to be real too. Some of the most influential people I've met aren't the ones with the biggest resumes or the fanciest titles. They're the ones who aren't afraid to show their scars. The ones who say, yes, I've been through the fire. I've been broken. I've had doubts, but I'm still standing. That's power. Not the kind that shines under spotlights, but the kind that changes lives behind closed doors. We live in a world obsessed with filters, highlight reels, appearances. But the truth is, people are tired of pretending. They're tired of faking confidence and hiding their pain. What people are hungry for is realness. And that's something you already have inside you. You don't need to fix every flaw before you speak. You don't need to have all your trauma healed before you love. You don't need to make 6 figures before you call yourself successful. The goal is not to arrive whole and finished. The goal is to show up anyway. Show up in progress. Show up in process. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not unqualified. You are becoming. And there is immense strength in that. The caterpillar doesn't wait until it's a butterfly to move. It keeps crawling, even when it doesn't understand what it's becoming. That's faith. That's forward motion. That's how you grow wings, by honoring where you are while still reaching for where you're going. I've met mothers who were raising kids alone and thought they weren't doing enough, when in fact, they were doing more with love and struggle than most do with comfort and ease. I've met people recovering from addiction who thought they were too far gone, when in fact, Their daily choice to keep going was a beacon of strength to everyone around them. I've met young people afraid to speak their truth because they didn't have degrees or titles, but their lived experiences were enough to break chains and light fires in others. So stop disqualifying yourself. Stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to step into your life. You are enough. Not because of what you've achieved, but because of who you are. Not because of how perfect you are, but because of how real you're willing to be. When I look back on my journey, the moments that made the biggest difference weren't the ones where I looked strong. They were the ones where I was strong, quietly, humbly, imperfectly. Showing up, speaking when I was scared, believing when I had no reason to, loving when I felt empty, trying when everything said stop. That is power. And that kind of power, it's already in you. Right now, just as you are, keep showing up, keep going. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to believe that who you are today is more than enough to begin. Cut off the voice of comparison. Let me ask you something real. When did you stop feeling good about who you are? When did you start believing that what you bring to the table isn't enough just because someone else has a fancier seat or a louder voice? You see, there's this trap we fall into without even realizing it. It starts when we look over at someone else's life, their success, their body, their house, their smile, their relationship, their following, and we start shrinking inside. Why not me? Why can't I be that? Why don't I look like that? Why is my life moving so slow when there seems to be speeding by like a freight train? And before you know it, you're drowning in this mental loop of not enough. You're not failing. You're just constantly comparing, and that comparison is killing your joy. It's not just stealing your happiness. It's robbing you of your identity. Comparison is a thief. But it doesn't just take your joy. It takes your power. It makes you forget who you are. It clouds your view of your purpose. It blinds you to your own blessings. You can't run your race while watching someone else's lane. You can't reach your destiny while clinging to someone else's blueprint. We live in a world where it's so easy to get caught up. Social media has become a comparison machine. You scroll and scroll and scroll until you've convinced yourself you're behind in life. You're not seeing people's truth. You're seeing their highlight reel, their perfect angle, their edited smile, their carefully captioned moments of triumph. You don't see the pain behind the camera, the breakdowns between the breakthroughs, the nights they couldn't sleep, the fear they don't talk about, the emptiness they try to cover with filters and fame. And yet we compare our real lives to their staged moments. We let it make us feel small. But you were never meant to be a copy. You were born an original. You don't need to match someone else's glow. You've got your own fire. You are not them. And thank God for that. You were not built for their journey. You were not called to their mission. You were not designed to be their reflection. You were designed to be you. That's your superpower, your authenticity, your unique rhythm, your story, your scars, your weird laugh, your creative spirit, your quiet strength. That's where your power lies. When I was first getting started, I used to compare myself to other speakers. I'd study them, watch them on stage, listen to their cadence, their confidence, their charisma. And I'd think, Les, you'll never be like them. And you know what? I was right. I'll never be them. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was thinking that being me wasn't enough. See, the moment I stopped trying to sound like someone else and started speaking from my truth, everything changed. The doors opened. The hearts opened. Because I wasn't trying to impress anyone, I was just trying to impact someone. That's the key. That's the shift. From impressing to impacting. The people you admire, they had to fight their own battles. They had to climb their own mountains. And they have insecurities too. Don't romanticize their path and demonize your own. Don't assume their ease just because you haven't seen their effort. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not late. You're on your journey. And the timing of your life is sacred. Trust it. Some people are on chapter 20 and you're still on chapter 3, but your story isn't over. Keep writing. Keep walking. Stay in your lane. Because when you stay in your lane, there's no traffic. And let me tell you something beautiful. No one else can beat you at being you. You're not a duplicate. You're not a shadow. You're not plan B. You are a masterpiece in motion. And when you lean into your path, your timing, your voice, your gifts, you light up in a way that no imitation ever could. Cut off that voice that keeps telling you you're not enough because you don't have what they have. That's not your voice. That's fear wearing a mask. That's doubt trying to disguise itself as logic. That's insecurity trying to sound like truth. But it's a lie. And it's time to silence it. You don't need to be the next anyone. You just need to be the first and only you. And when you walk in that, when you stop measuring, comparing, doubting, shrinking, you'll finally see that you were never missing anything. You've had it in you the whole time. The fire, the beauty, the value, the greatness. Stay in your lane. Trust your pace. Cut off the voice of comparison and watch how your life starts to rise. Take inventory of the people around you. There's a quiet truth we often overlook when we talk about self-worth. And that is this sometimes. It's not the voice in your head that does the most damage. It's the voices around you. You want to heal. You want to grow. You want to stop degrading yourself and step into the life you were meant to live. Then you have to take inventory of your circle because not everyone around you is meant to go where you're going. You see, we're taught to be kind, to be loyal, to stick with people no matter what. And that's noble. That's beautiful. But if the people you're loyal to are constantly tearing you down, if they're chipping away at your self-esteem, if they're making you feel like your dreams are too big or your heart is too soft or your goals are too far, you owe it to yourself to start asking, why am I still letting them speak into me? Because here's the truth. You don't just absorb words. You absorb energy. You absorb belief. You absorb what people repeatedly reflect back at you. If you hang around folks who only see your flaws, it's hard to see your strength. If you're constantly surrounded by people who mock your ambition, you start to believe maybe you're asking for too much out of life. I know what that feels like. There was a time in my life when I was constantly surrounded by people who didn't believe in me. I'd share a dream and they'd laugh. I'd talk about possibility and they'd say, be realistic. I'd speak hope and they'd come back with fear. And I started to shrink. I started to apologize for dreaming. I started to doubt the very voice that was born to uplift others. I started degrading myself before I even opened my mouth. And one day I realized, this isn't all me. Some of this insecurity, it was inherited. Some of this doubt, it was planted. Some of this smallness, it was projected onto me by people who were afraid to dream for themselves. You've got to understand something. Not everyone will understand your mission. Not everyone will support your healing. Not everyone will celebrate your evolution. Some people benefit from your self-doubt. Some people need you to stay small so they don't have to confront their own stagnation. But that's not your burden to carry. So take inventory. Who builds you up? Who sees you when you forget how to see yourself? Who challenges you to rise, not guilt you for growing? Who speaks life, not limitation? Who reminds you of your worth when the world has tried to erase it? And also, who makes you question your value? Who drains you emotionally? Who minimizes your wins and maximizes your losses? Who shows up only to take, never to pour into you? It's time to be honest, because your future depends on it. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to cut them off with cruelty. But you do need to set some boundaries. You do need to guard your spirit. You do need to remember that your circle is either watering your growth, withering your soul. We become like the people we spend the most time with. So if your circle is full of complainers, doubters, dream killers, and energy vampires, don't be surprised if you start feeling stuck and heavy. That's not weakness. That's influence. And you have to take it seriously. You need people around you who can see past your brokenness and remind you of your beauty. People who don't compete with you. They complete you. People who clap when you win, even when they're still waiting on their own breakthrough. People who don't dim your light but remind you to shine brighter. Your environment matters. And the truth is, sometimes the most radical act of self-love is simply choosing to walk away from the people who make you question your worth and walking toward the ones who remind you of it. Because healing isn't just what you say to yourself. It's what you hear from those you trust. It's what you feel when you walk into the room. It's the conversations you have, the energy you receive, the love you're surrounded with. So today, I challenge you. Take inventory, clean house, protect your peace. Choose community that lifts you higher, not company that keeps you low. Because you were never meant to do life alone, but you were also never meant to live in the shadows of other people's insecurities. You are worthy of relationships that remind you of your brilliance, of friendships that speak to your future, not your fear, of connections that call out your courage, not your caution. Choose wisely, because your greatness is too precious to waste on people who can't see it. Affirm yourself like your life depends on it, because it does if you've been carrying the weight of self-degradation for years, if your inner dialogue has been a constant storm of doubt, criticism, and fear. Then you know this truth: healing isn't accidental. It's intentional. It's a conscious, daily act of rebellion against the lies you've been told, the voices that tried to break you, and the chains that kept you small. It means affirming yourself like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. You see, words are not just sounds. They are powerful forces that shape reality. The stories you tell yourself every single day become the blueprint for your life. They either build you up or tear you down. When you affirm your worth, your power, your potential, you're sending a message to your subconscious mind that you are someone who deserves success, love, and joy. But when you put yourself down, even in small ways, you're telling your brain that you don't deserve those things. And the brain listens. I know this well because I've lived it. For years, my own self-talk was filled with doubts. Who do you think you are? You're not enough. You don't belong. I repeated those lies so often. They almost became my truth. But then I made a decision, a radical decision, to rewrite the story I told myself, to stand in front of the mirror each morning and look myself in the eye and say, Les, you are powerful. You are worthy. You are enough. Well, at first, it felt strange, awkward even, because when you've been drowning in self-criticism, it's hard to believe kindness from yourself. But I kept going. I kept speaking those words, sometimes barely believing them, sometimes just saying them because I knew I had to. And slowly, the tide began to turn. The words began to sink in. My mind began to rewire, and my life started to change. Affirmations are not magic spells. They are commitments. They are declarations of war against the negative narratives that have held you hostage. When you say, I am not my past, you're telling yourself that yesterday's mistakes do not define your tomorrow's destiny. When you say, I am the author of my future, you're reclaiming your power to create, to grow, and to rise. Here's the thing about affirmations. They need repetition. Your mind is like a garden. If you plant weeds of doubt, fear, and insecurity, that's what will grow. But if you plant seeds of love, strength, and worth, that's what will bloom. The soil of your heart has been fertilized with years of criticism. So it's going to take time and consistent care to grow a new garden. That's why you must speak your affirmations daily, loudly, boldly, and without apology. Say it out loud. Say it with feeling. Say it even if your voice shakes. Look yourself in the eye and say, I am powerful. Feel those words ripple through your body. Let them awaken something inside you that's been dormant for too long. Because your power has never left you. It's been buried beneath layers of doubt and fear. You might stumble. You might forget. You might get discouraged. But each time you come back to your affirmations, you're rewiring your brain for victory. You're reminding yourself that you are worthy of love, success, happiness, and peace. You're rejecting the lies that have told you otherwise. Affirmations are not about arrogance. They are about truth. They are about reclaiming your God-given dignity, your divine worth. When you say, I am enough, You are standing up against a culture that constantly tells you you're not. When you say, I am worthy, you are defying every moment that tried to make you feel less than. And here's what happens next. When you affirm yourself like your life depends on it, you start to act differently. You start to set boundaries. You start to pursue your dreams with courage. You start to treat yourself with the kindness and respect you deserve. Because deep down, you believe in your own worth. So don't underestimate the power of speaking your truth to yourself every single day. Don't dismiss the power of your own voice. It is your greatest tool for transformation. If you want to stop degrading yourself, if you want to break free from the cycle of self-doubt, start here. Start with your words. Look in the mirror tomorrow morning and every morning after that. Say to yourself with conviction, I am powerful. I am worthy. I am enough. I am not my past. I am the author of my future. Speak it until you believe it. Speak it until it becomes the foundation of your life. Because it does matter. Your life depends on it. Act as if you are already the person you want to become. There is a powerful secret that many of the most successful and fulfilled people have discovered. A secret that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. It is the practice of acting as if you are already the person you want to become. Not someday, not after you've made it, but right now, in this very moment. Because when you stop degrading yourself, you stop living in the past or the limits of your current circumstances. You start living from vision, from possibility, from the place of who you are meant to be. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine walking into a room where you don't feel small. Imagine standing tall, shoulders back, eyes bright, heart open, knowing you belong there. Not because someone handed you a title or a certificate, but because you decided to own your space, because you decided to act like the person you want to become, even if your bank account, your job, or your circumstances haven't caught up yet. This is the power of acting as if. Our brains are wired in remarkable ways. Scientists tell us that the brain doesn't always distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined or deeply believed. When you consistently act, speak, and think like the person you want to be, your brain begins to adapt, rewire, and align with that new reality. Your confidence grows. Your habits change. Your energy shifts. Your entire presence transforms. You literally begin to embody your future self. But here's the catch. Acting as if is not about pretending or wearing a mask. It's about stepping into the truth of who you already are at your core, beneath the fears, the doubts, and the harsh words you've told yourself for too long. It's about honoring the vision of your highest self and making choices every day that reflect that honor. Choices in how you talk to yourself, who you surround yourself with, how you carry your body, how you pursue your goals. When I was young, before I became a speaker, a motivator, someone who stood in front of thousands with confidence, I had to act as if. I had to convince myself I belonged on those stages. Even when the fear wanted to stop me in my tracks, I had to show up like I was the man I dreamed of becoming, even though the reflection in the mirror told a different story. I had no fancy degrees, no big name backing me. What I had was a vision. A fire inside that refused to be extinguished. And I chose to act on that vision every single day. You see, the moment you decide to honor who you are becoming, to live from that future self, the world begins to respond differently to you. Doors open that once felt locked. People treat you with a new level of respect because you treat yourself that way first. Opportunities come not by coincidence, but because your energy is aligned with the person you've declared yourself to be. This isn't just about grand gestures. It's in the small, everyday decisions. It's how you dress. It's how you speak. It's how you show up to work, to relationships, to your dreams. It's saying yes to yourself when the easy way is to shrink back. It's standing firm when doubt whispers in your ear. It's the daily discipline of stepping forward, even when you don't feel ready. I want you to know something crucial. Your future self is waiting for you to step into your power. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions or for everything to be just right. The truth is, perfect conditions rarely come. The only way to create the life you want is to start now, acting as if you are already that person. Because this is how transformation happens. This is how you stop degrading yourself and start building yourself up. This is how you move from survival to thriving, from dreaming to doing, from silent suffering to loud living. So here's the challenge I want to leave you with today. Start acting like the person you want to become. Walk with confidence. Speak with conviction and make decisions with courage. Even if your heart trembles, even if the old voice inside protests, even if you've stumbled before. The moment you begin to act as if you claim your power, you rewrite your story. You step out of the shadows of doubt and into the light of your purpose. And one day, not far from now, you'll look back and realize you weren't pretending at all. You were becoming the unstoppable, powerful, worthy person you were always meant to be,